Namaste, everybody. Namaskar. Welcome to my Enfra show and this episode of the Future of Energy. And with me today is Shri PVSN Murthy, our old colleague and a man who has been in the energy sector for as long as we have been in the publishing. So, in fact, when Falcon Media started Inertia as a publication, Murthy Saab has been right from the beginning with us. Of course, in the first few years, it was the stint with Voith, with the Vice President, Voith Hydro, those days, and he's with us. The other gentleman who's going to join us shortly is none other than N. Murugesan, the former Director General of the Central Power Research Institute, CPRI. Welcome to you, sir. And we are waiting for Murugesan to join, but we are going to start today's questioning and today's issues on the power sector, which will go for the 2 episodes continuously, one after the other right now. And the first question, I start with the very fact that last week to 10 days, 2 events happened. The first event was when India suddenly hit 197 gigawatt of peak power consumption. And then on the 7th, it was again it followed that we went to 200 gigawatt. You know, from a consumption of 197 gigawatt a few days earlier, we hit the record of 200, the circuit was crossed. The present installed capacity is 383 gigawatt, you can say 384 to be rounding off. This works to 52% of the capacity. There is a lot of celebration. Murthy Saab, एक celebration चल रहा है कि बहुत बड़ा काम हो गया. Yes, on one side it is a record that as you go, you're consuming more, it's a record consumption. But the presentation is being made as if some extraordinary thing has happened. The hard reality is we have only 52% consumption of our total gross installed capacity. It is not still, when we studied that figure, 60% of that consumption has come from thermal power.
Absolutely clear.
And I would say 14% contribution, because the capacity index wise it is only 11% hydro, but 14% has come from hydro.
Absolutely.
And 15% has come from renewable sources, other renewable sources. So when I put these figures, it comes in perspective. That means hydro is generating more than what it can.
Absolutely.
Because in the installed capacity term, hydro would be about 11% or 10%, but it generated 14%. But it generated 14% because the other sources were down, and thermal was still hitting 60%. 58% was thermal, and 16% was about renewable energy. In fact, sorry, my figure I must correct. 68% was thermal, not 58%. 68% was thermal. 68% was thermal. Because from all the thermal coal power plants basically contributed 68%, because the PLFs have come up in the last couple of months. From May onwards, the PLFs are better, but they are not anywhere near what we as a jury have done. We have given the Vindhyachals, we have given the Ramagundam, we have given all these plants for 90% plus plant load factors.
Absolutely.
So still the thermal power plants are not in the optimal range. The older ones, which are subcritical, are not in optimal range. That is also one point. That means thermal consumption is still not where it should be. And my feeling is, unless it crosses 250 gigawatt, which will make it go above the 60% mark, the time for celebration has not come. So what is your view, sir?
Yes. You see, basically, if you see it, the installed capacity in terms of sharing of this one, the coal and gas together is 60%. Okay.
Right.
Hydro is about 12%, and 25% comes from the renewable.
Yes.
But if you take in terms of plant load factor, renewable energy 25%, actually it could be around 16 to 17% of the actual installed capacity only it can generate. Okay.
Yeah.
And in thermal, we can almost go up to 90% as we have seen earlier. And hydro also will give you quite a good percentage of about 35 to 40 easily. And in the rainy season, it goes much higher. Normally they generate 10% more than what it is actually installed capacity of the hydro.
No,
Okay.
and then let us explain, Murthy Sahab, just interjecting, let us explain why availability factor is different in hydro, which is different from the plant load factor. Availability
Absolutely.
factor is the key. In availability factor, which is the conversion of energy related factor, 58%, the hydro is available to you 58 to 60% times.
Yes, absolutely. That's what is happening. See,
And that's
hydro
what we
once,
tell.
yes, that's where the generation coming out of hydro is quite high this time. And
Yeah.
similarly, the renewable will be always, the generation installed capacity could be quite high, but actual million units which you generate will be quite low because of its efficacy, which is 17%, and also it is six hours a day max available. So that's
Right.
what makes a lot of difference. Whereas hydro projects which are running during, especially during monsoon season, they can generate availability is quite high, water is available, so they always can generate much higher than what they are designed for. If they are designed for 100 megawatt, they will give 110 megawatt related units into the system. So that makes a lot of difference in terms of this one. Yes, as you correctly said it, we cannot celebrate 200 gigawatt that we have reached the peak and all those things. That is doing something extraordinary. Nothing has been great has been done. Also, we must realize during this lockdown period, certain industries have been closed. The power consumption has come down. Basically, let us see that fact also, I think, has to be factored into the system. So as the system is coming back, as factories are coming back into the production, naturally the requirement will go up. That is one of the major things which is showing it. But as you correctly said, getting about 58% of what installed capacity is not a great thing. That's only for PowerPoint presentation. People are making it and showing it. That does not get into that mode actually. And also, if you see the per capita consumption of today, what is the per capita consumption of power? It is 1200 kilowatt hours. It is 1200 kilowatt hours. So compared to any other country, we are still not on that higher side for per capita consumption of the power. So we need to check all these points also before we talk about 200 gigawatt consumption has happened, we reached our peak and all those things. And that's what I feel the time is yet to come that we really can celebrate that we reached our peak levels. Today, the peak levels are not very clear with a lot of industries yet to come back to their full capacities after the COVID shutdown. That's another major thing which needs to be also considered during this calculation of the million units consumptions. And as you see that, as I always said, the point of it, renewable with 25% will always reduce the it may be showing high in the installed capacity, but in terms of million units generated, it's going to be coal and hydro, which will always support the whole system. That's very fact, and there's a clear conception of this one. And especially this season, during this season, hydro is going to be, availability of hydro is quite big, and you are going to give higher this one. And that also could be one of the reasons why your thermal is only working around 68%. Okay, that's what I would like to put it, Professor.
Yeah, there is clear evidence that hydro was operating more than the ratio in installed capacity. Ratio-wise, with the installed capacity would be about 10 to 11%. But right now, in terms of energy generation, hydro went to 14%. Means 14%. It almost matched the rest of the renewable energy, because hydro, our installed capacity is only 46 gigawatt.
Absolutely.
And I will tell you one interesting figure. When the 2014 this present NDA government came, that time the total capacity index of hydro was 39 gigawatt. Yes. So what have we effectively added? In 7 years, we have added 7 gigawatt. So that is only 1 gigawatt a year. That is 1000 megawatt of year is a very poor performance by any standard.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that UPA did some phenomenal work before, because UP also brought it down.
Yeah.
Somewhat similar only, but maybe a little better. I want to take it back, the hydro scenario, to the times when Atal Bihari Vajpayee was there. When Atal Bihari Vajpayee was there, the hydrothermal ratio was 27.1% hydropower.
Yes.
It was the highest in the history of India, probably. Even if you look at the immediately after, Nehru Sahib, let's say, became Prime Minister, and after 20 years of Pandit Nehru's almost leadership and then Lal Bahadur Shastri coming in, I think this type of figures, about 25% and 30%, were only available in that era.
Absolutely, you're right. In fact,
then the era came down to 22% and all during Indira Gandhi's time, and it came to that level. Then again picked up a little bit in Narasimha Rao's era. See, I was just tracking hydropower development and our prime ministers. In fact, very funny, I saw Deve Gowda time it was improving. Well, Deve Gowda was only 1.5 years. Deve Gowda was only prime minister for 1 year or so. But yet, suddenly, and we must talk in this show that Narmada Sardar Sarovar Dam was thanks to Deve Gowda Sahab.
Absolutely, you're right.
That time, Medha Patkar went, cursing him in the world. She went and made all publicity. But this man, who has nothing to do with Gujarat, he was from Karnataka. He was the prime minister candidate. He came. He simply put his foot down on a national project, wanted this to happen.
Absolutely, you're right.
Narendra Modi Sahab benefited from what Deve Gowda did.
Deve Gowda did. Absolutely, no doubt about it.
See, the hydro project came during when he was CM in Gujarat. Built up. But the man who cleared those files, man who went ahead with the project, was none other than Deve Gowda. So this is a little bit of history, and to understand that hydro was in focus during Atalji's time, I will always say that, because P.R. Kumaramangalam, his minister, and Jayavanti Ben Mehta, I met personally. Both of them were wonderful people. And Kumaramangalam was very clear. Professor Sahab, I understand technical issue. Without the grid will not operate without the hydro.
Hydro, yes.
Now what we are doing?
Absolutely.
We are supplying less power to our people because we don't have the hydro power.
We don't have the hydro backup. Yes.
Yeah, because
another thing I want to share.
Let's say 20 mega, out of 46 gigawatt, we were at 20 gigawatt more, 75 plus. I'm telling you, we would have been consuming 300 gigawatt of power in the grid. Because it is there. People are talking surplus. I say this is the biggest bogey. We are denying people electricity in this country. We must come to that conclusion, and that is impacting our GDP. Now, welcome to Murugesan Saab, who has joined us. I want Murugesan Saab. You heard all these things. I want you to explain to us this whole issue, that why we are not going forward, why we are celebrating. Suddenly we have got 200 gigawatt. What is the celebration in that? Yes, we must congratulate R.K. Singh Saab, because in his tenure, some semblance of return to hydro has come. I am fully with him on that. And we are also congratulating on this show that we are happy that he has been elevated to the post of, I would say, cabinet minister now. He was earlier holding independent charge in energy, but now he is the union cabinet minister for power, and deservedly, very deserving candidate. Out of the, like I believe Gadkari Saab was a fantastic deserving candidate, and he should have been deputy prime minister also, at least. Same way, I believe that R.K. Singh has done a reasonably good job after the failure of Piyush Goyal, literally in bringing back power sector to shape. After complete failure of Piyush Goyal, I think R.K. Singh has done a very good job. What is your view, sir?
Yes, sir. As clearly mentioned that, the hydro is a basic benchmark, and to give a stability, all such thing. And of course, the change in scenario, like renewable comes into picture and all such thing, and smart grid going to be the order of the day in the coming days. And the previous debate itself, we mentioned that without pump storage, you cannot have a smart grid framework at all. All over the world, people have planned well in advance and converted even existing hydro station into a pump storage, and say that now it is coming handy, and now they are exploiting the full potential. Now India has full potential, not like European countries or anything like that. Here we get full, most of the time we get solar power and excess power. We do not know what to do now. That is a kind of thing. So in this condition, the hydro, importance of hydro cannot be overemphasized than this one. So the need is to exploit to the lowest level. This should have been done. That is the cheapest, and it is a stable power, and it is a pollution-free power. So you go all out to see that, instead of completing 7 years or 10 years, you put your entire effort like Chinese. You complete in all the things in a short period, so that is, as I mentioned, there is storage. Storage means it is only hydro station is a storage. No other can be, no other element can be a storage. That kind of thing. So that is well and said and done. Reason is that we celebration when we compare to the world over consumption, we are not in a very respectable position. Even if you take Thailand, is much ahead of us. In fact, when I was a director general, our Miley Saab was a power minister. Though he was a lawyer, he used to tell us, I do not know much about electricity. But one thing I know, your GDP is linked to the electricity. That much I know.
Very much.
That much I know. He told, sir, he told us, I'm not a power engineer or anything like that. But one thing is sure, if you want the country to go up, you want 10%. If you want 15%, you increase your power capacity availability 15%. Automatically, your GDP will go up. So we have to put all our effort to see that where we may say that 3.6 lakh megawatt, all such thing. In the world level, we are nowhere, sir. The consumption is so low. That we are not changed in the last 10 years or 15 years. Okay, it's my slight change from 500, 700 to 1,000, 1,500, something like that. It's not a major change. We should say that power surplus is available. People should not wait, even if it is like agriculture also. You put it somewhere so that it comes back as a government GDP. So the important is that you increase this kind of modular increasing, all such things. We are nowhere before China. All such, when compared to our total population, we are minuscule. So we have to see that all the resources, as Miley Saab told, you put all the resources to see that you produce electricity such a way that it is excess. That again GDP will increase, then again consumption will increase. Again it is a multiplying effect. So that way only we have to be. This way, incrementally, we will not even see. We are close to even Thailand. 6,000.
Now, to put further in perspective, I asked you a question.
Yes.
What is your view? Because I find, as a neutral analyst, because I've been bold enough to state what I want to state.
Absolutely.
Present Minister R.K. Singh is doing a decent job, in spite of the point that we need to go forward with greater capacity. I find the present Minister R.K. Singh is more sensible than the earlier minister, and he is doing a reasonable job to bring things back.
Certainly, sir. I have seen Mr. Piyush Goyal, the way of in a style of functioning. After all, he is a chartered accountant. Chartered accountant, maybe a bit of legal, but the way he treated the people, such a way that he destroyed the electricity sector at all, sir. Whether it is CPRA, CPRA completely destroyed. NPTA, one of the best organizations, that also destroyed. You name anything, he puts hand. He wants to put even people, political people in our board, sir. CPRA. Kind of nothing to do with power research and politics. But this our R.K. Singh Saab, I observed distantly for last 5-6 years. 4-5 years, he is reasonably doing without. I have seen him in the conferences. A very humble person. He is doing his job very silently, not like that previous gentleman who talks so much like that. But he is doing wonderfully within the constraint. He is doing excellent job. He is doing that. That much I can.
So my expectation comes from there. I think now on the grid side, as you rightly said, that we need the pump storage. In fact, that would be a better thing to maintain the grid frequency and operate at more efficient level. I want to put up the facts, sir. So the grid limitation, why we are not thinking to go for decentralized and distributed power and combine it with the aspect, of transmission corridor bottlenecks. Because if we continue to only build export of power from one region to other, and then the coal-based power will again come dominant. Instead of that, why not look at decentralized but in local grids and decentralized off grids?
Sir, Sir, one thing is that, sir, you need to look up to what is that reality on the ground side. If you see that most of the utilities are government-controlled utilities, excepting the Tata Power in Delhi, Ahmedabad, this Mumbai, Calcutta, like that, only isolated is maybe 3%, 4% or 5%. But if we see that majority of the utilities are government-controlled. But the potential, they are all engineers, very good engineers, but are they been focused? No, in my experience, my interaction with these people, they're all day to day, they are doing firefighting. There is no clear plan. Sir, advanced metering infrastructure is such a simplest thing in the world. About 15 years back, this Italy has demonstrated for 30 million meters. When there was no like 3G, 4G, nothing was there. They used only power line communication to do this advanced metering, that is the automatic meter reading, demonstrated using power line. Right. Not anything else, power line. Here we can't think of power line. So they have demonstrated the AMR, AMI is a fundamental building block for your smart grid. That is we say financial, commercially it is viable. That itself, still we are not able to do that, sir, in this country. This is a very sad affair. You have smart meter. The reason is that the people they have not reached the level of the people. That people capability to handle it, say the Tata Power, Reliance, they have the capability to do that. How it is possible? It is working very fine, whether it is storage, this one, that one, anything, no, they do it very nice because they geared up. The people have been trained, people have been put into charge, and everything is working successfully in this private sector. Why it is not working in this government sector? So that we need to deal.
That way, if you look at CSC has done a great job in smart grid approach.
Absolutely. No, private company. Sir, private companies. Private companies in India.
Among the government discount, I think the best work has been done by Bestcom, and they have received our recognition also.
They're doing so. They're doing. But what I'm trying to tell is that people, manpower capability should be raised.
I know.
And tune with that. And tune with the time. If we say what is the standard for smart grid, how many people can be able to tell? Say about 250 standards.
I must say to the viewers that it is Murugesan Saab who set up and put the entire basis when there was nothing available. The smart grid standards for India was worked upon by Murugesan Saab when he was the DG, and even we worked closely with BIS. Sir, explain something on this, the smart grid standard.
In fact, sir, smart grid people are talking about last 15 years or so. The thing is that everybody thinks that like unfortunate people, now the people with less vision touching the elephant and see that this is like this. It was going on. But thing is that there are building blocks. You say that one is a home automation. This is the first building block. Then comes a meter automation. Then comes a feeder automation. Then comes a substation automation. Then comes your distribution automation. Then you come to the transmission automation. Then your storage. Then the electric vehicle. All such thing, it comes into the picture. Renewable or microgrid, all such things. So we need to build one by one, building block one by one, so that nobody has achieved even 40%, 50% of the smart grid framework. So what is lacking is that. So first is a start with a meter reading, because that is where you can get your money back, because you are paying.
It is a low hanging fruit. It is a low hanging fruit.
70,000 rupees you are paying for a meter reader, 70,000 or 80,000 rupees. And then pension, also it can reduce the liability on the utilities. And it, of course, it will reflect to the customers also. So it will reflect on the customers also. So, sir, we thought about it to standardize the meter even in 2002 itself. I set up the first laboratory for smart meter in 2002. When people are not aware that AMI or smart grid, nothing. That time I set up the laboratory and brought all the metering industry. They were all hesitant. They were reluctant to come to the, because they thought that their business will go off. Because when you standardize it, everybody will have the same platform, no higher or lower like this. So we took a lot of time and we set up the laboratory, we certified all the people. And so because of that one, we set up even standard for smart meter standard, 15949. That is the first time the data exchange, common data exchange. Every meter will exchange only a similar data. So you can collect it, 10 type of meters, you collect it, data same. So your software development can be easier. Otherwise, it was very specific to 1 meter, X, Y, Z, like that. So 10 setups should be there. So we set up that one, 15949 data exchange. We had done it. Then we went up to the level of first time the whole world 16444 standard was released under my chairmanship. I was a chairman for 16444, that is smart meter. So then not only that, other next building block is that substation automation. So there also similar thing like other players, like transmission players were there. So we brought them together. That is called 161850 substation automation standard. It can have direction on the transmission also. That also set up first time in the Asia itself. There was no other laboratory. First time in Asia in collaboration with KEMA and International User Group, UCA International User Group, set up the laboratory in CPRA and certified large number of, that is second portion, second building block of your smart grid. That way we brought lots of standards, and even put a security standard, we brought it.
I know.
That way we have done it. So that way, what we are trying to say now, sir, the manpower thing also to be now brought to this highest level. Otherwise, you may bring thousands of crores, all will become waste. Because the manpower may not be able to handle. So 75,000 crore we invested. How much we are getting back under RA, PDRP or IPDS? How much we are getting back? Only God knows. Maybe 1 or 2 is working isolatedly. 75,000 crore. Afterwards, IPDS also they have done it. I do not know where it is utilized, how it is successful. So this we are talking a last 10, 15 years. Major thing is that people manpower, trained quality manpower is not available in government controlled utilities, because we can tell that there is nothing to hold back. We have to tell the fact to the viewers that this is a major. Otherwise, when it is working in Tata Power, why it's not working in other utility? Natural corollary is that there it is working fine. People are getting good supply, power supply, interruption less, and meter reading is simple. All such things are happening. Why it's not happening by other utilities? Very rarely here and there. So that quality of manpower should be raised. For that, even Ministry of Power can intervene. Say that they are spending thousands of crores. You say that some 100 crore, you put on only training the people.
Yeah, but sir, the whole issue is, like, we brought a training module already. REPA has brought a training module. The whole idea is the specialized training modules are not available with the government. So they have to go with the experts.
Yes, they have to train with the people like.
Have to come and see, with the advent of renewable energy, we are facing the challenge of infirm power. Now, this question, I will take it back to Murthy Sahab also. But this infirm power minus hydro, which is, I would say, which is a more stable approach to power generation. You see, both solar and wind, in spite of our love for them as a renewable energy, they are infirm power. And that is a very difficult condition to operate the grid with infirm power, sir.
Absolutely.
Okay, Murthy Saab, you can take that question. No issues.
Yeah. You see, basically both solar and wind and other type of renewable powers, basically they are not a continuous power generation basically, and they have a time limit. Solar
Right.
works when you have got a sun and it's limited to 6 to 7 hours at the max. Similarly,
Right.
wind is totally dependent on the flow of winds which is coming up. So that
Right.
makes it totally inform power, and you do not know at what time really these powers will be available in the grid. So when you are
Right.
scheduling certain things, unless you have backup powers like hydro or something, you cannot keep this power as a continuous power supply into the system. See, the grids need to take care of this part of it. I think partly our grid is getting it used to this inform powers into the system. But in my opinion, both solar and wind and small hydro should be used more as decentralized power and go for decentralized smart grids. So that what will happen is these things will not affect the grid operation totally, and you can supply for a gambit of operation of villages, a cluster of villages, and use this decentralized power for those cluster of villages. Because whatever we say, whatever you say 200 gigawatt we met, still we know most of the interior parts of India doesn't have power even today. That's a
Yeah.
fact of life. That's a fact of life. So
Yeah,
what
yeah,
is
yes,
needed?
yes.
So what is needed is we need to have decentralized power distribution, generation and distribution at decentralized level. Let it not go to the grid everywhere. So that's more
Yeah.
important. I think this concept of what we call microgrid is very important. That has to be come into the picture. And I think microgrid power generation and local distribution is also under the LCT Act is authorized. So why not people look into that aspect of decentralized power distribution for remote areas, for example, Northeast small villages. Even in our own plateau of other states also, there are remote villages where power is not available, where you can go for this local distribution of the power. And that is
Now,
very,
now take
that's
the
very
take the
important.
take the example of the Andaman Islands, and also take
Absolutely.
the Lakshadweep Island. They are not dependent on the
No,
grid. They have got
grid.
local generation. Today NTPC
Absolutely.
has
Yes.
put up a solar look, it's all
Floating.
diesel power. It is completely diesel
Floating
power.
solar. They put a
And
floating
earlier
floating
was diesel
solar.
power. Now they have put solar and some kind of battery technology backup
Absolutely.
a little bit to provide power to the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And also the same thing is happening in Lakshadweep. So it is not
Lakshadweep.
possible to have, our problem is we are thinking grid is the only solution. So
Absolutely. That's
has
not.
to go. Grid cannot be the only solution. Grid is to be
Absolutely.
one solution for large transport of power for industry and maybe for mechanized activity, commercial activity. But then when you look at agriculture, when you look at rural, when you look at smaller communities, and maybe now next, because now I'm coming to the end of this particular session and closing to go to the next link. But what I'm going to discuss is a very interesting point where I am sitting here in the place called Dombivli. Behind me, barely a few kilometers, is a place called Thakurli. So in my next thing, I'm going to discuss what happened to this idea of a decentralized generation for a location, and it has been lying in the cupboard. And the former minister before R.K. Singh Saab, he has put that paper into the dustbin. He has not removed that paper in spite of a MMRDA chairman coming with that project. MMRDA, Mumbai Metropolitan Region Development Authority's chief had come up with the project, and I'm going to discuss this in my next take shortly. And very thankful to Murthy Saab and Murugesh Saab being here. We will continue, and we are just coming back. Don't go away. We have the next session for you.
Thank you.
Thank you for now. And we come to the end of this episode, but we are starting the other one shortly.